Alien girl reacts strangely after smelling human sweat. The research station orbited the distant planet Calera in the Andromeda sector, where humans had established their first permanent diplomatic outpost with the Villani species. Dr. Marcus Thompson wiped the sweat from his brow as he worked late into the artificial night cycle, repairing the atmospheric processors that kept the station habitable for both species. The Villani required a slightly different atmospheric composition than humans, with higher humidity and trace amounts of xenon gas that their respiratory systems had evolved to process. Marcus had been working for 6 hours straight, without a break, trying to fix a critical malfunction in the climate control systems. His uniform clung to his body damp with perspiration as he crawled through the maintenance tunnels, checking each connection and circuit board. The work was exhausting but necessary, as any failure in the life support systems could jeopardize the entire diplomatic mission that had taken years to establish. As he emerged from the cramped maintenance shaft, Marcus nearly collided with Kira, one of the younger Villani, who served as a cultural liaison between the two species. The Villani were humanoid in appearance, but taller and more slender than humans, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer under certain lighting conditions. Their eyes were larger than human eyes, with vertical pupils that could dilate dramatically in low light. Kira was considered beautiful by both human and Villani standards, with graceful movements and a melodic voice that made even the most mundane conversations sound like poetry. Kira stopped abruptly when she encountered Marcus, her large eyes widening as she caught the scent of his sweat-soaked clothing. She stood frozen for a moment, breathing deeply through her delicate nasal passages, which were more sensitive than human noses. Something strange happened to her expression as she processed the unfamiliar chemical signals. Her pupils dilated fully, and her skin began to take on a deeper blue hue that Marcus had never seen before. The young Villani female took another step closer to Marcus, seemingly drawn by the scent, despite her obvious confusion about what was happening to her. She raised her hand as if to touch his arm, but stopped herself, looking puzzled and slightly alarmed by her own behavior. Marcus noticed that her breathing had become more rapid and shallow, and there was a tremor in her voice when she finally spoke. Marcus asked if she was feeling all right, but Kira could only stammer a response in her native language before switching back to the common tongue they used for interspecies communication. She explained that she was experiencing something completely unfamiliar, and that the scent of his perspiration was affecting her in ways she did not understand. Her people had very different biological responses to chemical stimuli compared to humans, and what Marcus was witnessing was unprecedented in all the documented interactions between their species. The research station had protocols for medical emergencies, but nothing in the databases covered what appeared to be happening to Kira. Marcus suggested they contact the medical bay, but Kira shook her head, insisting that she was not ill but rather experiencing something that felt strangely natural despite being completely foreign to her previous experiences. She described the sensation as awakening something dormant within her biology that had never been triggered before. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the chief medical officer, arrived within minutes of Marcus calling for assistance. She had extensive experience with Villani physiology from her years of research, but had never encountered anything like what she observed in Kira. The young alien female was displaying symptoms that seemed to indicate a profound biological shift was occurring at the cellular level. Her skin continued to change color in subtle waves, and her entire nervous system appeared to be recalibrating itself in response to the human chemical signals. Elena ran preliminary scans using the medical tricorder designed for interspecies diagnosis. The readings showed that Kira's hormone levels were fluctuating dramatically, and her brain activity was spiking in regions associated with emotional processing and memory formation. Most remarkably, her immune system was not rejecting the foreign chemical compounds, but rather incorporating them into her biological processes in ways that defied current scientific understanding of Villani physiology. The medical data revealed that Kira's body was producing entirely new proteins and enzymes that had never been documented in any Villani before. Her genetic expression was changing in real time, as if exposure to human sweat had activated dormant sequences in her DNA that evolution had kept locked away for millions of years. Elena had never witnessed anything like this rapid biological adaptation in any species. Marcus felt responsible for whatever was happening to Kira and insisted on staying close to monitor her condition. The young Villani seemed to find his presence comforting despite the obvious turmoil her body was experiencing. She explained that while the changes were frightening, they also felt somehow right, as if she had been incomplete before this moment, and was now becoming what she was always meant to be. Elena contacted the xenobiology department on the station to consult with Dr. James Park, who specialized in evolutionary biology and interspecies genetics. When he arrived and examined the data, he was stunned by what he found. The genetic changes occurring in Kira were not random mutations, but appeared to be following a predetermined pattern, as if her species had evolved a latent capacity for this type of biological transformation. Dr. Park theorized that the Villani might have evolved alongside another species in their distant past, and that exposure to human chemical signals was triggering an ancient biological memory. He suggested that millions of years ago the Villani ancestors may have formed symbiotic relationships with beings whose biochemistry was similar to humans, and that this evolutionary history was now being reactivated by Marcus's scent. The transformation continued throughout the night as Kira's body adapted to process and respond to human pheromones and chemical signals. Her skin developed new sensory organs that could detect minute traces of human hormones and emotions. Her brain rewired itself to interpret these chemical messages, creating new neural pathways that allowed her to understand human emotional states in ways that had never been possible before. Elena monitored Kira's vital signs continuously while documenting every aspect of the transformation for the xenobiology archives. The young Villani female was conscious and alert throughout the process, describing each new sensation as it emerged. She reported that she could now sense Marcus's emotional state, his level of fatigue, and even his general health status, simply by analyzing the chemical compounds in his sweat. The most remarkable discovery came when Elena realized that Kira was not just adapting to human biochemistry, but was also producing her own chemical signals that seemed designed to communicate with humans on a subliminal level. Marcus found himself feeling unusually calm and focused in her presence, as if her body was releasing compounds that had a stabilizing effect on human physiology. Dr. Park suggested that they were witnessing the emergence of a new form of interspecies communication that operated below the level of conscious awareness. The biological changes in Kira were creating the foundation for a type of chemical empathy that could revolutionize relations between humans and Villani. Instead of relying solely on language and visual cues, the two species might be able to develop a form of biochemical understanding that transcended traditional barriers. As dawn approached in the station's artificial day cycle, Kira's transformation began to stabilize. Her skin had settled into a new pattern of coloration that seemed to shift subtly in response to her surroundings and emotional state. Her eyes had developed additional layers of sensitivity that allowed her to perceive chemical gradients in the air with extraordinary precision. Most importantly, she reported feeling a deep sense of connection to Marcus that went beyond anything she had experienced with members of her own species. Elena's final medical scans revealed that the transformation was complete and that Kira's new biological systems were functioning perfectly. The young Villani female had essentially evolved into a hybrid form that retained all her original species characteristics, while gaining new capabilities that bridged the gap between human and Villani physiology. She had become something entirely new in the galaxy, a living symbol of the potential for true interspecies unity. Marcus was amazed by what had occurred and felt a profound sense of responsibility for the role he had played in Kira's transformation. The young alien female assured him that she harbored no resentment and in fact felt grateful for the experience. She explained that she now understood aspects of existence that had been hidden from her people for countless generations, and that this knowledge filled her with a sense of purpose she had never known before. Dr. Park realized that this discovery would have massive implications for interspecies relations throughout the galaxy. If other Villani could undergo similar transformations, it might be possible to create a new category of beings who could serve as perfect ambassadors between species. These transformed individuals would possess the biological capability to understand and communicate with both humans and Villani on levels that pure members of either species could never achieve. The research station's command staff was immediately briefed on the situation, and emergency protocols were activated to ensure that news of Kira's transformation was handled with appropriate discretion. The implications were too significant to release without careful consideration of the potential consequences. If the process could be replicated, it might represent the next step in the evolution of interspecies cooperation, but it could also create new forms of discrimination and conflict. Kira spent the following days learning to control her new abilities and adapting to the profound changes in her sensory perception. She discovered that she could detect the emotional states of every human on the station, and that her own emotional responses had become more intense and complex. The world had become a richer, more nuanced place, but also more overwhelming as she struggled to process the constant stream of chemical information her enhanced senses provided. Marcus worked closely with Kira to help her understand human biochemistry and emotional responses. He found that her presence had a calming effect on his own stress levels, and that he could communicate with her in ways that transcended normal language. When he was troubled or anxious, she seemed to sense it immediately and would adjust her own chemical output to help stabilize his mood. It was as if they had developed a biological feedback loop that maintained emotional equilibrium between them. Elena continued her research into the mechanisms behind Kira's transformation and made additional discoveries that challenged everything they thought they knew about evolution and interspecies compatibility. The genetic changes were not random but followed patterns that suggested they were guided by some form of biological intelligence. It was as if Kira's DNA contained a sophisticated program that knew exactly how to adapt to human biochemistry. The implications of this discovery extended far beyond the immediate situation. If the Villani possessed this latent adaptive capability, it suggested that their species might have been designed or evolved specifically to form symbiotic relationships with other intelligent beings. Dr. Park theorized that the Villani might be living bridges between species capable of facilitating communication and understanding across the vast differences that normally separated alien civilizations. As word of Kira's transformation spread through the scientific community, researchers from across the galaxy began requesting access to the data. The discovery was being hailed as the most significant breakthrough in xenobiology in centuries, and speculation ran wild about the potential applications. Some scientists suggested that similar transformations might be possible between other species, while others worried about the ethical implications of deliberately inducing such changes. Kira herself became the subject of intense study and debate. She was no longer purely Villani, but she was not human either. She existed in a unique category that challenged traditional concepts of species identity and biological classification. Some argued that she represented the future of interspecies evolution, while others worried that she was an aberration that could never truly belong to either world. Despite the attention and controversy, Kira remained focused on understanding her new existence and the responsibilities that came with her unique capabilities. She worked with the diplomatic corps to explore how her enhanced empathic abilities might be used to resolve conflicts between humans and Villani. Her capacity to literally sense the emotional truth behind words and actions made her an invaluable mediator in situations where traditional diplomacy had failed. The transformation had created something unprecedented in the galaxy, a being who could bridge the gap between two intelligent species, not through technology or training, but through fundamental biological compatibility. Kira had become a living testament to the possibility that the differences between species might not be as insurmountable as they had always seemed, and that evolution itself might be guiding the galaxy toward greater unity and understanding. Marcus continued to work alongside Kira as she adapted to her new existence. Their relationship had evolved into something that transcended normal friendship or professional collaboration. They were connected by biological bonds that created a form of understanding that neither had ever experienced with members of their own species. It was as if they had become two parts of a single organism, designed to bridge the gap between their peoples. The research station had become the center of a new chapter in interspecies relations. What had begun as a routine diplomatic mission had evolved into something that would reshape the future of galactic civilization. The discovery that biological barriers between species could be overcome through natural processes opened up possibilities that no one had ever imagined and challenged the fundamental assumptions about what it meant to be human or alien in an interconnected universe. As Kira mastered her new abilities, she began to dream of a future where such transformations were not accidents, but planned steps toward a galaxy where all intelligent species could truly understand and empathize with one another. Her own transformation had been triggered by something as simple as human sweat, but the implications reached far beyond that single moment to encompass the very nature of consciousness, evolution, and the destiny of intelligent life in the cosmos.